Hello, everyone. So this is a quick, unscripted little rant concerning something that happened to me today when I got to work. I go to work relatively early in the morning, and at work at that time there is basically me and maybe two other people. And for the first couple of hours of the day, that's it. So I get to work this morning, and my coworker, who sits in the cubicle across from me, says, not to get political or anything, which of course I know immediately is a preamble for, oh boy, we're about to have a political conversation, says, did you hear that the Trump administration left the word Jews out of the Holocaust Day statement? And I turned to them and I said, did they really? Now, I'd heard peripherally about this supposed story, but I hadn't given it any attention over the last couple of days because I've been busy with other things like making other videos for you guys and for myself, of course. But I said, oh, did they really not say that? And my coworker says, no, they didn't mention them at all. They talked about the Christians and the gypsies and the homosexuals, but they left out the Jews. And so I turn to my coworker and I say, they left the Jews out of the Holocaust Day statement. Yeah. So what you're saying is the White House is anti-Semitic. And my coworker kind of sputters a little bit and says, well, I just want to know why they didn't say it. I said, no, wait a second. By saying that, what you're trying to tell me, what you're implying here, is that the White House is anti-Semitic. Is that what you're saying? Now, I'm getting a little irritated at this point during this conversation with my coworker because A, I didn't want to have this conversation, and B, I was pretty sure the story I was being told was bullshit. But again, I hadn't paid attention to the story explicitly to that point. So I was asking them to affirm where they were coming from on this. And I said, you know that Trump's son-in-law is Jewish, right? And that his daughter converted? And they're like, yeah, but I just want to know why they didn't say the word. It was like a broken record at this point. And so I said, okay, so they mentioned Christians, they mentioned gypsies, they mentioned homosexuals, but they didn't mention Jews in the Holocaust statement. Yeah. So what do? Oh, gosh, I go on Google, and in 3 seconds I have the statement up, and I read it to them. I read this to my coworker word for word. And as I start to read, they say, well, where are you getting that from? And I look at them and I say, the White House, Office of the Press Secretary. This is the actual statement. And I read it to them. And what is the reference to the victims of the Holocaust in the statement? Innocent victims or innocent lives lost in the Holocaust. And I look at them and say, where's the reference to the Christians? Where's the reference to the homosexuals? Where's the reference to the gypsies? And they're just like, well, I guess the source I read was, did you read the statement? And this is all I'm quoting myself almost tone for tone and word for word. And they're just sputtering. And I said, and I calmed down a little bit. And I said, look, I've been hearing stuff like this for the last week. And there are a lot of things that Trump is doing that I don't agree with. But please, 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 do not be one of those people that adds to the confusion of what's going on right now by relaying lies and half-truths. If you hear something, check it at the source, please. And that's basically where the conversation, such as it was, ended. Now, I've mentioned this, I think, in a stream before or something, but I have a particular, let's say, sensitivity. I'm not going to say trigger, but I have a sensitivity when it comes to accusations against people that are unfounded. Even people I don't like, okay? There was a time, several years ago now, where I was accused of something I did not do. And despite the fact that I did not do this thing, despite there being people who would essentially testify that I did not do this thing, I was held to account for this thing I did not do, in such a way as it threatened my real life, let's say, circumstances. I'm being very vague here. I don't want to get into the specifics. Now, I did my best over the ensuing months after being punished for this thing I did not do to clear my name. And after a long process, I was able to do so. But of course, the ensuing time between accusation, effective conviction, and me vindicating myself left the question mark above my head, and it probably was still there even after the fact. And that moment of getting past that point, of making my case and clearing my name, at least officially, was both the most triumphant and most humbling experience of my life to that point. Triumphant because I effectively fought in the abstract City Hall and won, but also because it was so simple to have an otherwise spotless reputation and otherwise pure character completely besmirched and completely stained by a false accusation. I will not deny that when I see someone who is hoisted on their own petard, who is the victim of their own hubris or their own fallacy, that I take some schadenfreude in that. I take some pleasure in that. However, if someone I don't like falls victim to something that was not their fault, if someone I don't like is hit by a bolt of lightning or has their house burned down by accident, this is not something to celebrate. This is not something to cheer on or to be happy about. If someone I don't like is going to be brought down a peg by events surrounding their lives, the only legitimate time at which to take any sort of guilty joy at it is when it's a result of something they actually brought upon themselves. If you don't like Donald Trump, and there are a lot of people who don't, try not liking him for the things he actually has done, not the things people are saying he did. Because when it comes down to it, if you argue against the character of someone on false pretense, all you are doing is making them the victim of your lie, and you are injuring your own credibility. We cannot have productive debates or conversations if we are going to argue against each other based on fiction. Okay, so there's my soapbox. There's my lecture for the day. I just had to get this off my chest. As you can tell, it made me quite animated. In any case, thank you for listening.